She and her husband had a fake marriage. Her husband had a twin brother. After getting drunk once, he suddenly took her home. Looking at the man in front of her, she couldn't control herself. Unexpectedly, when she woke up, she found that she had slept with the wrong husband. The rain poured down in torrents, and the cold wind whipped around, lifting the hem of the woman's delicate skirt. Susie hesitated for a moment before the doorbell. Unexpectedly, the man who opened the door had a gloomy expression, his gray hoodie stained with red liquid, and he was even holding a small knife. Susie was so frightened that she almost screamed. The man inside the house noticed her fear and lightly pressed his lips together. It's paint. His perfectly sculpted features exuded an ethereal and distant aura. Susie realized she had mistakenly thought of him as some sort of mountain-dwelling psychopath, and she gave a guilty smile. She almost forgot that he was a painter. An internationally renowned genius painter, no less. "My brother doesn't live here. Miss Harmon, did you come to the wrong place?" "I know. I had an interview nearby today, but it started raining, and my car broke down. I can't get down the mountain tonight." "So?" Susie felt a bit embarrassed. "Can I stay here for the night?" He remained silent, his eyes still cold. Susie suddenly regretted seeking help from him. Although he was Harry's twin brother, she had only met him once before. During that meeting, he seemed very impatient with her, cold and indifferent. Now, this being their second meeting, she was asking to spend the night at his place, which was quite inappropriate. "This is just the two of us, and you're my brother's fiancé. Is this appropriate?" He wouldn't mind. He seemed to let out a slight laugh. Just when Susie thought she would have to spend the night in her car, he gave her a deep look and released the door handle. "Come in." Susie breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stepped inside. She didn't notice the faint starlight glimmer in his cold eyes. Denzel handed her a glass of water, then glanced down at his own clothes and frowned in distaste. Just as he was about to speak, Denzel cut in. "I know, you go ahead with your work." "I know." He paused, then the corner of his mouth curved. "I was going to ask if you wanted to take a shower and warm up since your clothes are wet." Susie shook her head without thinking. "No, thank you." Taking a shower in a stranger's house felt too intimate. And she had no clothes to change into. He didn't insist and returned to his room. A few minutes later, the sound of the shower came from the bedroom. Susie drank the hot water, feeling warmer, and realized she should inform Harry. Harry had been busy with the company's IPO recently, and she didn't want to disturb him, so she just sent a message. To her surprise, within a minute, he called. "Why did you seek help from him instead of me? I could have sent someone to pick you up." Susie wasn't sure if it was just her imagination, but Harry seemed very wary of his brother. "The rain is too heavy, and the road down the mountain is blocked. No one can come up, but you shouldn't stay at his place." His tone was a bit urgent, completely different from his usual gentle and elegant demeanor. Susie felt something strange. Then he softened his voice. "You're a public figure, and I'm afraid people might misunderstand. After all, you're my fiancé. I'll leave early in the morning. No one will see. Then I'll come pick you up myself." His attitude was firm. Susie pressed her lips together and didn't argue further. She and Harry had only known each other for a month and got engaged the second time they met. They weren't really that close, so he didn't need to care so much about her. "Miss Harmon and my brother are truly affectionate. Do you always have to report everything to him?" Susie had just hung up the phone when she heard Denzel's somewhat sarcastic voice from behind. He had just finished showering, wearing a soft fabric hoodie with a wide neckline that exposed the elegant curve of his collarbone. Susie's gaze wavered for a moment before she heard him speak casually. "I'm very curious, how far have you two progressed?" He sat leisurely on the sofa, a slow, unfathomable smile rising in his eyes. As twins, he and Harry looked identical, but their temperaments were completely different. Their styles of dress were also polar opposites, making it easy to distinguish between them. Harry typically wore business attire. Denzel was more casual. Both times Susie saw him, he was wearing hoodies. Though he should exude a youthful vibe, his eccentric personality gave off a mysterious and dangerous aura. "Since you were engaged, so the next step is probably preparing for marriage, right?" While Susie was in a daze, he curled his lips slightly and walked over, his gaze deep and intense, even more so than usual. Susie didn't know if it was because she got drenched in the rain, was feverish, or simply too tired, but her mind suddenly became uncontrollably scattered. In her trance, she seemed to see Denzel's worried expression. "Are you catching a cold? Your clothes are wet, you should take them off." Her mind felt like it was being submerged in seawater, slowly enveloping her consciousness. She felt dizzy, her body chilled by the cold wind, causing her to shiver. The next second, the cold was replaced by warm water. She forced her eyes open, but the chandelier above her was too bright. All she could make out was the head of glossy black hair in front of her. "Who are you?" He leaned in close, his cool nose seemingly rubbing against hers affectionately. "Guess." His voice was hypnotic and confident. Susie saw his face clearly. It was Susie. No, it seemed to be Denzel. A cold, lavender-scented aura enveloped her, and searing touches landed on her skin, sending waves of tingling sensations through her body. Her trembling fingers pressed against his mischievous hand. "What are you doing? Be good, don't move." The sound of water flowed softly by her ears, and the warm breath carried a hint of menace, scattering Susie's thoughts.